Welcome to the Non-Sequitur Show. Continual watching beyond this point may result in terminal face palming and a complete loss of wokeness. You have been warned.
All right. Hey, welcome, everyone. It is the NonSequitur Show, and this is going to be a lot different from pretty much any other show that I've done. Obviously, the format has changed quite a bit on this channel. This is not going to be a debate episode. This is not going to be a guest or panel episode. Might not be a Q&A. I really don't know. But what this is going to be is me talking to you. Just talking to you as an average person, talking about things that I want to talk about tonight. I did have this similar discussion on my primary channel, Steve McRae. No, it's not time for bed. Why does she keep telling me it's time for bed? That's Alexis. No, it's not time for bed. No, I get to stay up. I'm a grown-ass man. I get to stay up tonight. So I did have this on my other channel, but unfortunately, I really didn't put out what I wanted to talk about that much. And it wasn't anybody's fault. I had John on, and John can talk. John can talk, but it wasn't his fault. It just, I wanted to basically put it on the Non-Sequitur Show and kind of give you guys a reasons about why I've changed politically. And there's a lot of reasons, obviously. But to give you a little background, I used to do a show called Over and Under, and I did that show with Chris Attlee. He was from Hereticals, if you remember him. And he is literally one of the very few people in my life that I will give a kidney to if he ever needs it. Hell, I even give him both kidneys if he needs it. I mean, this is somebody that I trust explicitly with my life in multiple different ways. And so I gave him my show. So he doesn't have to steal it. He doesn't have to kick me off. I gave him my show, all copyright, all materials, every dime. I get nothing. So I'm giving him full copyright and rights and privileges to use Over and Under as he sees fit. He can use it. He can not use it. I might borrow it occasionally, but we'll see. But long story short, he's going to be doing political commentary. Now, you guys might remember I did political commentary quite some time ago when we were doing the elections, and I had people on, and we were calling out the elections in real time, and pretty dang close. I think it was quite surprising that I'm pretty sure the last 3 elections that I did, was it 3? I think it was at least 2. I called it right. Well, there was 3. Yeah, it was 2016, 2020, and 2024. So I've been on a long time, I guess. But when we talk about the election coverage, Chris had actually made a point of calling the election to 312 electoral votes for Trump, and a lot of people laughed at him. I had people in my audience saying, you don't know what you're talking about. That's crazy. Trump can't win. And I said, well, 312 is high, but it's not unrealistic. I think there's a possibility there. You can go back and watch the episode if you want. Come to find out, he was dead on right, 100% right, 312. Now, yeah, there's some, guessing there, don't get me wrong. But I mean, he did understand that, look, the polls weren't exactly saying what the polls were trying to tell people. There was an incongruency between the polls and what the American people and the electorate were thinking. I saw this time and time again when they would say that a certain person was ahead in the polls and they weren't. That Trump would never get the swing states. He cut all the swing states. There's definitely an incongruency there. And he said something to me that really kind of changed my outlook on things. I knew he was right-leaning, obviously. I've always been a centrist, as you guys know, for the most part. My mom was a Democrat, but she voted Republican. My dad was a Republican and voted Republican. but I've always been more of a I guess a centrist to right. Yeah, no, I guess I was a more right leaning earlier too. But you know what? Let me just gonna fix this real quick. I don't know why that's all off. I don't like it. I gotta fix my chat thing. One sec. OCD here. 1 second. I apologize. I just want to fix this. Yeah, I don't like that. It's all off. All right. So he said to me that was a really, well, I took to heart, right? And he basically said, the media lies. Go look. You know, one of those do your own research kind of things. And by the way, make sure that you guys can hear me. Nobody has said that you can't hear me, so I assume that you can, and my audio is good. I always should check that right off the bat because my computer system has gone to crap. My video is no longer working. My camera is having issues. It kind of got kaput. My mic is having kind of issues, but I think I resolved that. Windows keeps wanting to update, and I don't want to update it because when I do, I lose my mouse. So, you know, my system's kind of getting old and antiquated, but I'm making do. But anyway, so he said, you know, go do your own research. And so I did. And I mean, you know, research as in just go, you know, read about things. It's not actually doing, you know, like scientific research. Let's be realistic here. But what I did notice was he was right. He was absolutely freaking right. We can't hear you turn the camera on. I don't think it works that way. And I'm not camera ready either. Even if I had my camera, honestly, I wouldn't be on. I don't like going on camera anymore. But be that as may. I did, and I looked at the news, right? And I saw that the news was deliberately lying to people. And I'm not talking about exaggeration of the truth. Is it clipping? I can put it back a little bit. If it's clipping, that should be better. Is that better, Real Cygnus? So, and let me give you some examples, right? And again, this is a holistic approach. This isn't something that just happened overnight, right? But what I started noticing was the headlines for certain organizations, such as like CNN, MSNBC, the Rolling Stone magazine, were just completely incongruent with the actual story. There was just the wording they used was manipulative. The wording they used was trying to appeal to people's emotions. You guys remember I've talked before about different types of debating techniques. And there's really kind of three main ways people can debate. There's argumentium ad logos, ad ethos, and pathos. And what that just means is that you could try to argue your point by persuasion, by logical and analytical and, you know, just pure persuasion by actual reason, right? And that would be more of a logos type approach, which I'm definitely more towards logos than anything else, right? You guys read my papers. They're all about logic. And so, you know, I'm going to take a more logical approach. The other two are ethos and pathos. And ethos is more toward character, saying, hey, this person is a person of character. Therefore, you should trust them more than somebody who's not a character, which can be obviously very problematic in politics because you don't know who to trust. You don't know who the characters are, the people of pure heart, and you don't know who the bad players are. At least that's the intent, right? That the media doesn't want you to know who the bad players are. And then, of course, there's pathos, which is more of along the lines of emotions. And so when I would read these news headlines, I would see them tug at heartstrings. I would see them manipulate people that are much more emotional than I am. That's why they don't work on me. I'm not considered to be, you know, a highly emotional person. But the way the media was spinning it was just not working for me. And I'll give you some specifics coming up here too. But I eventually realized that the Maga movement, Make America Great, was onto something. They weren't this radical right-wing lunatics that people were making them out to be. Not by any stretch of the imagination. I know many of them personally. I lived with two of them for 7 years. Great guys. Matter of fact, one of them is a ex-Marine. He wants to start a VA retirement house that he wants me to help run with him, which I'm giving seriously considerations to once I start feeling better. I'm considering taking him up on that. Because he wants to you know, he has some money and he wants to help out veterans. So I think that's great, right? But, you know, when I was living with them, you know, I never really got involved in the politics because it had a lot of stuff going on. People know I had a lot of stuff going on, and I just wasn't that interested, I guess you can say. But then I became interested. But I'll give you some specific examples of how I see things being portrayed in the media, which is incongruent with reality. For example, a lot of people have been talking about this Garcia, the guy from quote unquote Maryland Man. The amount of disinformation I've seen with this particular story is mind-boggling. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Nothing has compared to the amount of sheer dishonesty by the Democrats that they are trying to manipulate the minds of people. And I have a statement that I made on Blue Sky a long time ago, and it basically it's something that I said that I hold true to, and that is that the people that control the meaning of words control the minds of those who use them. Okay, so the people that control the meaning of words control the minds who've used them. It's just basically saying, look, if they can make some word mean something completely different than what it used to mean, or what the general understanding of a word, and I'm not talking about words that are used specifically in a specific domain of discourse like science, right? We all recognize in science that terminology is going to be a little bit more strict, called sensu stricto, sensu strictissimo. And in the colloquial sense, it's going to be strict sensu lato, which is going to be a very generic or general sense of the terms. So I'm not talking about that type of differentiation. What I'm talking about is that words like woman, I didn't have to go 54 years of my life, 55 years now, to have somebody tell me what a woman is. I know what a woman is. I've known a lot of women. And when the whole transgender ideology thing came about with the gender ideology, a lot of us kind of said, okay, we'll kind of give them a little leeway on it. I understand it. I have friends who are trans, and, like Jessica Gill, she's trans, and I have a lot of respect for her. But she also knows she's not a biological woman. She knows she is a male that wants to live her life as a female, and out of respect, because I have a friendship with her, I'll use her feminine pronoun. Why? Because I have a social compact with her that it doesn't bother me, right? Because I consider her a friend. But for somebody else to tell me who I have to refer to as a he or she, that will never happen. That will never happen, because when you're encroaching on other people's rights by trying to push your own, then you've already lost what it's like to be an American. You do not push your views as being normative or regulative on society because you want to be called a certain thing. You can ask, but it's a favor. And so if somebody says, I would like to be called this, and if you get along with that person, sure. I see no difference than a drag queen, right? Drag queens, they know they're men, but they often refer to drag queens as she. Okay. You're not actually thinking she's a real woman, right? And so when the trans movement went to an extreme and they started actually trying to make it an ontological reality that men were women, that's why I stepped in and said, no, I'm not going to accept this. And did I get crap for it? Oh, yes. Did I lose a lot of subscribers? Oh, yes. But you know what? I've always stuck by my principles, and I always will. And so I have no regrets. I have no remorse, none whatsoever. Because I was right on that issue. America was right on that issue. And I would fight against the idea of having men in women's sports. It's not fair. And I think America realizes that's not fair now. Women sure knew it was not fair for a long time. The girls playing these sports, like my daughter, who's an all-star catcher, she would know it's not fair. So I think America knew, but they looked at the other, they looked to another side, right? They looked away because they didn't want to see how far that people were taking this, where it became normative in society to think that men could be women. Now, again, I'm not against anybody living the life the way they want. I mean, let me make it very, very clear. If somebody wants to live as a female and they're a male, by all means. I mean, this is why I get into trouble with the TERFs because, they're like, well, it's a costume they're putting on, right? It's wearing women's face. And I understand that. I understand that argument. I'm not saying it's a bad argument. I'm not. But I'm saying is that I still think it's a freedom to wear that as a costume. Okay? And I have to make that very clear. Oh, hang on one sec. One second. Why am I getting my video playing in the background? One sec. I got to fix this. I don't know why I'm getting my video playing on the graph. I don't know what I did. There we go. Sorry about that. I don't think you guys could hear it, but I could hear it playing on tab. But my point being was that America was willing to go along with a little ways, but then when they started invading women's sports and they started invading bathrooms and things of that nature and forcing young girls to undress in front of male students and having teachers and admins watch, yeah, it crossed the line. It way crossed the line. And trying to trans kids way crossed the line. So I want to make it very clear that somebody has the right to dress as a female. You have a right to be offended or a right not to be offended. But that is their individual right. I will always stand by that, right? But I will not accept that they're actual women. That was the beginning of my understanding that there's more to what's going on in politics than I had ever imagined. That the Democrats were literally manipulating the minds of people by trying to make words different than what they mean, like woman. That was just a start. But let's go back to this Garcia case real quick. I've read what SCOTUS wrote. I've talked to people that know law. And unfortunately, there's people out there that are doing legal commentary on it that I think are absolutely wrong. And there's people that are doing legal commentary on it that I think are absolutely right. Both sides are legal experts. One of them has to be wrong. This is logic, right? Logos. If two people that are having they're opining and having their opinions out there on a particular case, and they're finding things to be completely different from each other, one of them has to be wrong. It could be no other way. So I can't just go by that. I have to go look for myself and say, okay, what is it that I'm reading into this? So let's look what we're reading into, and then we'll look at like what the Democrats have said. So in the case of Garcia, which was this poor Maryland father of the year that was swept up, caught by ICE and deported. And he's now sitting in CCOT in El Salvador in a gulag, rotting away, and his wife is just upset. She wants him back, and it's gone all up to the way to the Supreme Court. Well, this is actually what's going on with this. And I'm sorry if you think it's anything different, but this is what the documents actually read. You can put the documents in any AI. It'll read it for you and give you the gist of it if you want. But this is what was said. So let me make it very clear. First of all, this was not a Maryland man. This was not a man from Maryland. This was never a person who had citizenship. This was never a person who had residency. He was an illegal alien who came across the border. He walked across the desert and came across when he was about 15 or 16. He was swept up in a daytime raid, so to speak, with ICE at a Home Depot with a couple other known MS-13 gang members, and two immigration courts and a appeals court all determined that he was MS-13. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because even though the police report from the Prince George police report said he was confirmed MS-13, he was found having 8 passengers in a van, all registered at his address, claiming to be, friends and family living with him, with a known terrorist on a terrorist watch list with him, with one of the other people in the van, and he was put over investigated for human trafficking in 2022. Homeland Security has all these memos out on him. El Salvador has a file on him because he's an El Salvadorian. He's not an American. He's one of theirs. But this is where it gets interesting, because even if he wasn't MS-13, it wouldn't have mattered to the case at all. He was deportable. The immigration court found that he was here illegally. Whether he was MS-13 or not is absolutely irrelevant. He was to be deported. Now, did he have a stay from El Salvador? Yes. And why did he have the stay? Because he had told the judge that a rival gang, now make it very clear, a rival gang, meaning that he had to be in a gang to have a rival gang, called the Bar 18, if he went back to El Salvador, he was in fear of torture. And we have a policy as Americans that we don't want to send people back to get tortured. I understand that. But he is an El Salvadorian citizen, and they have him as a terrorist. They have him as somebody that has broken the laws down there. So they put him in SECOT. That wasn't our doing. That was El Salvador's doing. He's an El Salvadorian citizen. So when SCOTUS ruled what they ruled, they did not rule to bring him back home. Matter of fact, he cannot step foot on American soil. He is prohibited by law, by federal immigration law, to ever step foot on American soil. He can go to a port of entry, but he cannot actually be in the United States by law. So he can't come back to the States. So SCOTUS would never have even ordered such a thing. Plus, they cannot. SCOTUS cannot order, one, the President of the United States under Article 2, Section 2, under core plenary powers of diplomacy and foreign negotiations to do anything among diplomatic channels. But what's worse is they cannot order a citizen from another country back to the States. They cannot do it. It's just absolutely not. My audio's bad? Somebody saying my audio's bad? Everybody was saying it's 5x5. Now maybe it's on your end. How's my audio? Can you get an audio check? Because it looks okay on my end. I don't see anything wrong with it. But somebody says my audio's bad. So it's crackling. Hang on one sec. I'll turn off my filter. Let me do see if that helps. All right. Is that better? I turn off my noise suppression. See if that's better. That should cut back the clipping. So anyways, Rolling Stone magazine has this thing that comes out that says SCOTUS orders return of Maryland man, or SCOTUS orders return of Garcia. Trump disobeys order, which is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. There was no order to return him at all. It couldn't. Again, SCOTUS does not have this power to return a person from another country. He's not an American. We have no control over what El Salvador does. So these headlines saying that Trump had disobeyed SCOTUS was absolutely nonsense. Absolutely nonsense. What they did say was to facilitate. And what they meant by this, according to immigration law, is basically if he's able to make it to the port of entry, you have to facilitate going through the motions to where he would have got the stay lifted and then send him back. Because that's where he would be going back to, El Salvador. That's it. That's all that would happen. If he was to make it, if he was to get out of prison and he would make it back to a port of entry, he would be immediately arrested. They would lift the stay and send him right back to El Salvador, into SECOT there. Or they could send him to, Guantanamo Bay in Cuba or something, if they wanted to. They could send him anywhere really, right? But that's what facilitate meant in immigration law. Again, when you're talking about legal documents, you have to assume that the words being used are the legal terminology, which is in this case, is to facilitate means to remove any barriers preventing somebody from entering the country. And you can go look this up. You don't need me to show you anything, and you can go look it up. They also chided the Judge Zinnes. They chided her on it. If you read it very carefully, what they said was, basically in lay speak, what do you mean by effectuate his return? Because she said facilitate and effectuate. This is a low-level district court judge. This is one of 675 to 677 judges, all trying to make policy for the United States, which they're not supposed to make. These preliminary nationwide injunctions, the first one wasn't until 1963. Before then, the United States didn't have any. Why? Because it was not a district court's position to do what they're trying to do. It never was. That's not the Constitution didn't give them that power. You didn't want a judicial oligarchy. You didn't want individual judges making policy for the entire country. They're not elected officials. They don't get to do that. Can they do judicial review by Article 3? Yes. But you can do that by other means. You don't have to issue preliminary injunctions to have a review of something for constitutionality. But they told the judge, what do you mean by effectuate? Will you give us some clarity on this? because we cannot order his return. You cannot order his return, which it looks like you did. This judge literally said, you need to bring back this person into my courtroom. In the hearings that she had afterwards, she said, why is he not here? And the government said, why would he be? We're not bringing him back. If he can make it to a port, we'll happily, facilitate him back into the port. We'll get it lifted and we'll send him back. But we're not bringing him back to the States. He's not an American. He can't legally be here. And now she's even gone further, and she's like, well, I need to have daily updates of what you're trying to do to get him back. And they're like, well, this is it. First of all, this is all through diplomatic lines. You're not privy to any of this information. You don't have security clearance for any of this information. This is an Article 2 core plenary power. And this judge has no jurisdiction over that kind of power. This is something that's reserved just for the president. Go look it up. But she's trying. She's trying to say, I need you guys to tell me what you're doing to get him back. Well, they've already said they're not getting him back. The president of El Salvador says, no, we're not sending him back. So they're done. So they also went on to say, well, if he was able to come back, then you would continue had it been if they not had the little mistake, which I still think is a poison pill that happened in the record. I think the lawyer screwed up. I think that he said something that was not quite correct, or at least not the way that he was informed. But it was, now that's in the record, it's there. But the administrative error was basically they should have got the stay lifted, and then would have sent him to El Salvador, because the Barrotin gang is no longer in that area. The threat to him is no longer a viable threat, if it ever was. And so all that would have happened was if they would have caught this administrative error, they would have lifted it, and he would have been sent to El Salvador anyways. So there's a lot of performative outrage out there about due process, but what a lot of people don't realize is that term due process, but you don't hear a lot of prior to this. All of a sudden, this illegal alien that was sent to El Salvador, let's have due process. But the due process is different for different levels. And the due process for citizens is not the same due process for people that are in our country that are here illegally. It's just not. And so they had as much due process as they're going to get. But anyways, there's a couple people here that are not going to be around my channel. I will be removing them. So I'm sorry, but I have to finally put the kibosh down and just say enough's enough. I've been very, very, very kind, but I'm not doing it any longer. So, anyways, when it comes to the whole Garcia thing, I watched the news, and again, I was literally going this direction before that, but this again was like this the icing that I watched the news absolutely lie about it, saying, "Oh, Trump is defying SCOTUS." No, Trump has not defied SCOTUS yet. And by the way, Biden defied SCOTUS when he had the elimination of college loans, right? And so defying SCOTUS is not the end-all, be-all. It happens. Lincoln defied SCOTUS. Other presidents have defied SCOTUS. They're equal. SCOTUS, and so there are certain things that are not equal, though. And a lot of people don't realize this. Even though they're branches that are supposed to be equal in power and work together, the president still has powers that are above even the judicial branch, which are the core powers, which would be diplomacy, foreign negotiations, right? Border control would be part of that. And then the Army and the Navy, which is explicitly what it says, which has also been termed and deemed applicable to other branches of the military. So nobody can really tell him how to run the military, which is another thing that they're trying to do, right? They're trying to say transgenders belong in the military or can't be in the military. But here's the problem with that. Trans should only be in the military if you're able to serve under the sex that you are. In which case, it's fair. But we don't want people in the military that are not mentally competent to just be in the military. We don't want somebody in the military that's more concerned about the LGBTQ plus than they are serving the country and defending the country against enemies, foreign and domestic. We want a deadly fighting force. Okay? We don't want somebody in rainbows and all looking fabulous. That's fine for something else, but the military is not a social experiment. We don't want countries looking at us going, what the hell is this? We just don't. And plus, most of them are just not mentally well enough to serve. They don't think the same as the military people. They don't fit in with the rest of the military. They have very different agendas. Now, did we have trans in the military? No, not when I was in. We had gay people. And so the people that were gay, nobody cared. Nobody cared on my ship who was gay. We all knew who was gay. Nobody cared. The thing was, if you did your job, you did your job. And the gay people were just like any other people in the military. They did their job. Nobody cared. But they weren't saying, hey, I'm actually a female. I want to go live with the females in the female birthing. Because the females would have been, no, that's BS. We don't want a man living with us. And by the way, anybody can go say I'm right or wrong. Go ahead, but go read it for yourself. Really, go literally read what SCOTUS said. They asked the judge, what do you mean by effectuate? Because that is beyond your powers. They even said clearly that it's beyond her power and that she needs to give due regard to the executive branch. That's what they said. I can give you the exact wording if you want. But the wording was basically, hey, judge, what do you mean by effectuate? Effectuate, we think this is beyond your power and that you need to give due regard to the executive branch. I implore you to all go read it. And also, it was not 9-0 either. That was another thing that the press put out. Stephen Miller actually repeated that too, and he's a conservative. He's MAGA, and he actually got it wrong too. It was not 9-0. In fact, it was unsigned, and it wasn't per curiam, which is not the full court. So could you say that it was unanimous? No. 3 people out of the court. 3 out of them. Right? So you don't know what the other ones were. You don't know what the other 6 were. So you cannot say that it was 9-0 because it was unsigned. It means that they did not all sign off on it. So you don't know what that is. It's ambiguous. But the big thing was they basically was telling the judge, look, you ain't got power to do this. You don't have power to order him back. But now she's, yelling and screaming, where is he? You need to give me constant updates. And she's probably going to get up and maybe even get impeached out of this. The other judge in the other case, which was for the TDA gang members, the Trans de Agua, is that how you pronounce it? He's probably going to get impeached because he's gone way beyond the scope of his powers as well. And he also has family members that are benefiting from this. He also has a whole cloud over him of how he got this case. I did an analysis, even with the most minimum and maximum regressors, and using artificial intelligence, I came up with about 0.02% chance of him landing that case by random lottery. Other people did the same thing. They came up with a 0.03. So I was pretty dang close. And at best, it was 20%. I mean, that's at best. But the reality is it wasn't random. It appears he got tipped off by somebody. And then he was on vacation, and he was not the on-call judge, the emergency judge. He was on vacation, and he got tipped off to it, and he wanted that case. And there was a lot of bias there. And matter of fact, in another case, there's a lot of cases going on, but there's another case where demonstrates why these things happen. So I think it was the Colorado case where they had 137 Venezuelans ready to be deported. And the news is putting out that these are just, average illegal immigrants. No, these are like main people of that gang. These are people that have killed people. These are people that have tortured people. These are people that need to be out of our country. But the judges and the Democrats so much want them to stay. But this was out of Colorado, and the courts had determined that they had not done the court properly in the venue. They needed to do the venue through habeas corpus through Colorado, but instead I think they did it through Washington, D.C., and they did a stay under the AEA, the Aliens Enemy Act. They went right to the appeals court and to the Supreme Court at the same time. The ACLU wrote to both to the appeals court and to SCOTUS to try to get an emergency stay to prevent these terrorists from being deported. This is what the ACLU does. The ACLU is the world's most evil organization on the planet, probably, because they're not giving a damn about the people that live in America. They're not giving a damn about the victims of these gang members, the people they've killed, the people they've tortured, the drugs that they brought in. They don't care. They don't care about the women that have been raped, the children that have been raped. They don't care about any of that stuff. And it happens. Just happened the other day. Some illegal alien, kid was playing ball and he got attacked. Horrific. We need to get all of them out. And I've always been for that. But Democrats want them in. And MAGA doesn't. Which, again, another reason why I'm MAGA. But anyway, so this is where it gets interesting. So the ACLU filed with the appeals court and SCOTUS. Now, SCOTUS is a court of review, not first review. And so they need to wait for the appeals court to rule, and then they can rule, or they don't have jurisdiction. I haven't deleted anything of yours, Fade Boss. There's only one person I've done anything to, so your messages are fine. I can see you. I can read you. But SCOTUS got an emergency midnight phone call from an ACLU lawyer, ex parte, saying these Venezuelans are being shipped out tonight. We have evidence they're being shipped out tonight. We need an emergency stay. It's called a shadow docket. And SCOTUS said, okay, we'll give you an emergency stay, which is pretty unusual. It's not unprecedented, but it is unusual. But what's unusual is how they got it. From an ACLU attorney calling an ex parte to the judge directly. That is unheard. You don't do that. You cannot do that. But this is where it gets even more interesting. So they put a stay out on these illegal aliens that were terrorists, TDA terrorists, Trans de Agua Ente, whatever the hell they called, Trans de Agua, not water, but Agua, whatever the hell their name is. And come to find out, by today, this has happened today. The government wrote back and said, this stay is so improper from top to bottom because you guys are telling us to stay under the AEA. These illegal aliens were not under the AEA. They were under Title IX, which falls under Homeland Security, or they were going to do it under Department of Justice. But they don't. The stay was that under the AEA, not to ship these people out. But they weren't under the AEA. They were under Title IX, so the government didn't have to listen to them. And the stay was improper because the stay ordered them under the AEA, which it wasn't. I mean, they just screwed up big time. Big time. So SCOTUS is not a perfect bunch of people, okay? You have Sotomayor, which is way far left. Obviously you have Alto and Thomas. They're going to be more right, and then you have the middle people. But they're not perfect because they should have not done an emergency stay. They should have waited for the appeals court. They don't have to. They can do it, okay? The SCOTUS can do this. They're not obligated to wait for the appeals court, but they really should have because they messed up royally on this one. But anyways, my point being is that they're trying to keep these illegals in our country. Why? And it sure the hell ain't due process. Come on. Do you honestly expect me to believe that these people really give a crap about these terrorists? No. It's all political. All political. So, when I watch these news organizations outright lie to people and say Trump's disobeying SCOTUS, Trump is doing this, it's all about orange ban bad. It's everything about Trump himself. It's not about the issues. I don't see the Democrats talking about any of the issues at all. At all. And then you have literally U.S. senators going down and shaking hands with MS-13 terrorists. Known terrorists. You can disbelieve it all you want. I don't care. Disbelieve it. That's your thing. You can believe 1 + 1 = 4. For all I care, you can believe the earth is flat. Whatever. But Homeland Security, 2 immigration courts, an appeals court, the Prince George Police Department, and a 3-star deputy sheriff who says he's 1,000% sure. And then you also have El Salvador, who has a file on this guy, say he is a terrorist. Even if he wasn't, what the hell is the optics of this? Think with your brain here. Why would you, as a senator, prefer to go and shake hands with a potential terrorist who was deported properly, may not have been to the right they may have made a minor mistake, but the deportation was right. They were going to deport him. He was on the alternate waiting list to be deported. He just got moved up on the manifest because a couple of people got moved off the plane, so his name got moved up, and they didn't have it flagged not to send him to El Salvador. That was the administrative error. But had they saw the flag, all they would have done was say, hey, look, we're the executive branch, the lower level court, which is the immigration court, where these things are normally handled, which is a specialty court. We're just going to have him remove it. We're going to lift that stay, and then we're going to send him away. Probably would have taken a day. No big deal. So I'm not buying this as about due process. And in fact, how insane is it? I want you to really think about this, because Democrats don't think. They don't. It's all about their feelings. It's all about the tugging at the heartstrings, but they don't get to the facts. Because what are the facts? The facts are that this guy cannot come back to the country. He's federally banned from being in the United States. That's a fact. So they're going down to a foreign nation, an independent, sovereign nation, and saying, hey, can we have one of your citizens? Because we don't think that we did it right. Can we have him back so we can literally bring him back to the United States, remove the stay, and then send him right back to you? Where in God's green earth does that make sense? On what planet does that one make sense? Because it has nothing to do whether he's a terrorist or not. It has to do with, can he be in the country legally? No. What's his native country? El Salvador. Where did we deport him to? El Salvador. What they do with him, that's on them. Now, the government was being told that, oh, you're paying for his incarceration. But they just put out today that isn't the case. They said they have not put anything out there whatsoever about them paying for his incarceration. They're paying for the Venezuelans to be incarcerated, the TDA gang. That's a $6 million contract, but they're not El Salvadorians. They're not citizens of El Salvador. So when we shipped him to El Salvador, they said, yeah, this guy's a terrorist. They put him in CCOT. Right? So it makes no sense for them to say, let's bring him back to the States, get the stay lifted, and then send him back. For what? Due process? That's insanity. I didn't see any American get the due process that these people are expecting. I didn't see any American on J6 get the due process that these illegal immigrants are expected to have. Because it's not about protecting Americans. It's a slippery slope argument to say this guy is a known terrorist, this guy is a known illegal alien who is admitted coming into our country illegally, as opposed to, oh, you're an American citizen, and we're going to deport you because we don't like your politics. That is the biggest slippery slope, bull crap logic I've ever heard in my life. That's fallacious logic. Because if people start thinking what can happen 100 years from now with potentialities, they're not going to focus on today. Could any government become corrupt? Sure. Do we have checks and balances? Sure. But the amount of checks and balances they want for these known terrorists, not going to happen. And that's what MAGA is saying. MAGA is saying, no, we're done. We're done playing the game. We're done saying that men are women. We're done saying that men can be like in women's sports. We're done saying that kids can be trans. We're done saying that gender affirming surgery for a 5-year-old isn't anything but genital mutilation. We're done saying that people that are in our country can get Social Security numbers and get tax credits that they don't deserve, get on Medicaid that they do not deserve, get on Social Security that they do not deserve. So that's one of the reasons why I said enough. And so I want to read you what I wrote on Twitter. And one thing has changed on here, which obviously, now I do accept the label of MAGA. But I want to read this, and I want you guys to understand my position on this. Because honestly, I don't care. Believe me, don't believe me. I'm not trying to persuade you. I don't want to hear your arguments. You don't have to listen to mine. If you want to listen to me talk about these things, which I will be doing going forward on both channels, and I still have my philosophy and other stuff, that's fine. If you don't, unsubscribe. It makes no difference to me either way, because I'm not here for the people that are not going to change their minds. Because there's 3 types of people I've noticed out there. They're the ones that are suffering from Trump derangement syndrome to the point where they're never going to change their mind on anything. There's nothing that man can do where they're not going to say something's wrong. All they do is, just like MSNBC or CNN, all they do is find something to criticize him about. And he's right on that. He's absolutely right on that. And who's the one that got the border down to about 99.9%? The crossings down to almost zero? Almost zero. Who did that? Well, it was Trump. Is that something I wanted? Yes. I wanted to close the borders. So why would I not be supportive of that? I've always been supportive of that. I didn't change my position on that. I haven't changed any of my political positions. Trump's is doing now the second term what he didn't do the first time. Why I criticized him. That's all. So I haven't changed my political views at all. I want a secure border. I want these illegal immigrants out. I want illegals not to vote. I want children to grow up and have a chance to go through puberty like any other human being as part of natural development. I want women and kids to be safe in school and sports. And so everything that MAGA stands for, I believe in. And everything the Democrats stand for, I'm against. 100%. And the fact that the Democrats know they're lying to you. They know it. They're so corrupt, it's ridiculous. How half of them have not been in prison, I have no idea. But they're getting there. They're getting there. And I haven't even touched on some of that stuff yet, like these NGOs and the funneling of money and the ACLU and the donation fraud. AG Letitia James, who's the one that sued Trump for the $400 million civil judgment she got, which is now down to $175 million, I think, something about the ballpark, and he's getting that even appealed. She's looking at fraud, and she's going to be arrested, I think, any time. Mark my words, Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York, will be arrested. It's a matter of time. She's looking at mortgage fraud. She's looking at various types of mortgage fraud. I don't think she's going to get it on election fraud. I don't know, but definitely mortgage fraud. She, for 20 years, had said that a 5-dwelling place was a 4-dwelling family dwelling in order to get a better tax rate. She used her father as her husband to get a better tax rate, a better mortgage loan, and she also put her residency as primary in Virginia, which the problem obviously is if she's in Virginia for a primary residency, then how's she the AG of New York, right? It doesn't work. You got to have your primary residency in the state that you're the Attorney General of. So either way, she's probably looking at a solid 25 years to life because she was the one out there going, nobody's above the law. Trump has committed fraud, which, again, I don't think that he did. I think it was all fabricated at this point. I'm not saying Trump is perfect, by the way. I'm not by any means. But again, I'm trying to separate the man from the presidency. Whatever things Trump did as a man, I don't give a crap anymore because, look, when it comes down to between Trump and Kamala, there's no choice. There's no choice. There's no way that Kamala could have led this country. You think AOC can lead this country? Come on. Absolutely not. So you'll see the media just literally just bash on Trump for everything and change the narrative to where anything that's good, somebody else has done. What's bad, it's all Trump. And so those people that suffer from TDS, you're not going to change their minds. You're just not. The other ones that know they're full of crap, like the Adam Schiffs, the Chuck Schumers, the Nancy Pelosi's, they know they're dirty. The Hillary Clintons, they're all dirty. They're dirty, 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 dirty. Matter of fact, Adam Schiff got a preliminary pardon from Biden, which, by the way, might actually not be the case. Because, fun fact, we don't know who was running the country for the last 2 years of the Biden administration, because it wasn't Biden. Biden was not cognitively able to run the country. This is something we all know now. We were being told, we were being gaslighted by the Democrats, he's fine. I said, no, he's not fine. And if you guys don't follow me on Twitter, then you're missing out on a lot, because I put all this stuff out on Twitter. So I'm on Twitter. I'm at Steve McRae _. Don't forget the underscore. But you're missing out a lot if you don't follow me on Twitter or Facebook, which I know a lot of you on Facebook too. But I'll give you my idea of who was running the country, because these people were making decisions for the country which they were not elected to do. This is treason. The people that operated the auto pen, treason. The people that issue pardons that we don't even know if Biden even knew who was being pardoned, treason. The people that said Hunter Biden laptop was a Russian hoax from the Department of Justice, that's treasonous. The ones that, tried to say that Trump was colluding with Russia. That's treasonous. We all know that was BS now. The Crossfire Hurricane Report made that very clear. The Department of Justice under Biden was corrupt. This is why they have a new FBI director, Kash Patel. This is why they have a deputy director, Don Bongini, who gave up $1 million with the podcasting revenue. He was making a fortune off podcast to go be the deputy director. Pam Bondi for attorney general. Trump has people in place to hold these people accountable. When he said drain the swamp, I thought it was a political slogan. No, it wasn't. It was literally what he was trying to do was find the people in government that are absolutely corrupt. And they do exist. They still exist. People that are leaking information. There are people that are willfully in the government saying we're not going to put Trump's policies into place. They have treason. They have sedition. It's unreal in the intelligence community. And let me give you a personal perspective on this. I was in the Navy under Clinton. Was I a fan of Clinton? No. Did I think Clinton have some moral issues? Of course. All politicians do. But as somebody who was a E6 in the military, I didn't have the luxury to say, I'm not going to go where they sent me. I'm not going to do what they tell me to do because I don't like the president. I don't like his policies. I don't want to be out here off the coast of Kuwait. I don't think we should be involved with Kuwait. Well, I think we did. Should have. But I mean, let's suppose that I didn't. Suppose I said, you know what? We shouldn't be out here. I'm watching the oil fields burn, and I really was. I could smell the oil and the soot. Thinking, we could pretty much get, hit by a missile any time now because there was fighter planes in the area. It's called the silkworm envelope for a reason because they're silkworm missiles that tends to be fired on ships in the Straits of Hormuz. But I didn't have the luxury to say, oh, I'm not going to, do my duty. And that's why I could never be tried for treason or sedition because I recognize the power of the presidency. Whether I agreed with him or not, I had a duty and I did my duty. These people that are usurping the power of the president, these judicial activists that are making policy from the bench are violating the United States Constitution, which I had sworn to uphold against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Even though I don't have to obligate that, I have an obligation anymore because I'm out of the military. What you guys do know about me is I take those matters very seriously. Anybody who's ever watched me knows that I'm a patriot. Anybody who's ever watched me knows that I have a very strong military. I don't think I've ever hidden that at all. Somebody asked me my news sources. I watch it all. CNN, MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, Fox, you name it, I'll watch it. But you know what I've watched the most? Senate hearings. Senate hearings. Wow. Are they eye-opening? If you haven't watched Senate hearings, then you don't know what the hell is going on in America. Because they're the inside track, the insight to what's happening with America. I have two Discords. I don't want to create another. Well, I already got two Discords. I already have Discords. But yeah, I watch it all because you can't get away from it. The left-leaning media, the legacy media, is absolutely a propaganda machine. This is not conspiracy. This is fact. This is fact. You can go look. Go look at a headline. Go look at I don't remember what it's called, and I don't have it, but I've seen similar that I use, where it show you the leading of a article opposed to something else by the way they word the headline. And the ones from CNN and MSNBC are completely different. For example, they're all saying, America's deported a 2-year-old child with cancer. That's the headline from the left. That never happened. The mother was here illegally. The child was an American citizen, which, again, there's a discussion to be had on birthright on American soil. There's a discussion to be had on that. But, as of right now, he's an American citizen. And she said, I'm leaving. And they said, would you like to take your child with you because the father has no custody rights? So would you take the child or abandon the child in foster care? I don't think the dad wanted or something. It doesn't matter. He didn't have custodial rights. So she said she would take him. So somebody asked me today, well, the kid was deported then. No, the kid can come back anytime. So to say that the kid was deported is the media lying to you. Just like the media saying SCOTUS ruled they had to bring back Garcia is the media lying to you. They're saying that that Trump violated the Supreme Court of the United States by not bringing him back. They're lying to you. But again, you don't have to believe me. Go look, figure it out. If you don't come to the same conclusion, I'm not going to get mad at you. I'm not going to understand it, but I'm not going to get mad. Because the people with Trump derangement syndrome, they get mad. And I don't know why. When Chris was telling me, how far right he kind of is, I didn't get mad at him. I didn't go, hey, you happen to support Trump. You're a bad person. I thought, okay, I like you. I trust you. You're a smart guy. Matter of fact, your PhD is in political science. What is it that you're seeing that I'm not seeing? Because I wanted to know. How much more objective can you be than that? I don't know. But real quick, I'm going to give you the names of the 3 people that I was thinking was probably running the country during the time that Biden was having his cognitive impairment. Oh, my first super chat in like a year. Thank you, Josh, for $49.99. Says, don't agree with all you say, Steve, but I love you. And I love you too, brother. And the fact that we don't agree on everything is just perfect. I would not want it any other way. I'm not here to have people just agree with me. I don't want an echo chamber. I'm not here to have people disagree with me. This is not a debate. I'm not going to be debating this topic with anybody. I'm going to be discussing this topic. And there's a difference. And I'm going to be holding to my own principles because even like with the flat earth stuff, you guys know I hated debating flat earth. It was not my thing. Other people enjoyed it. That's fine. And occasionally it was fun, but it was entertainment. It was basically just watching an idiot get it destroyed by people that know physics and science, right? So I'm not going to be debating with people that disagree with me. Josh and I, we're talking about this stuff a lot. Josh is one of the very few people I can call in the middle of the night and we can talk about stuff. And I love him as a brother because of that. We don't have to agree. I wouldn't want him to agree. Chris Attlee and I didn't agree on some political stuff. I didn't shit on him. I didn't yell at him. I wasn't even mad. I was just like, okay, I'm not understanding it, but maybe explain it to me. I'll go look into it, and I'll figure it out for myself, as people have asked me to do, right? People have asked me to do my own research. But here's the thing. From what I see, if I had to guess between who was running the country, I'm going to give you 3 names. And I want you as the audience to tell me if you even heard of any of these people. You probably heard of 1 or 2 of them, but we'll see here. So here's the 3 people that I think were running the country. Ready for this? And again, you can think it's conspiratorial. That's fine. Again, just my belief. I'm not saying I'm certain about it, but this is what I'm leaning towards. But yes, thank you very much, Josh. And by the way, like I said, by all means, don't agree with me on stuff because how can I change your mind if I right? And Josh knows I'll change my mind too. You give me enough evidence, I'll change my mind. Right? I never thought I'd be supporting Trump the way I am. Right? This was not in my 2025 bingo card. Right? I came to this conclusion with great reservation, but I did it after a long, hard look at what's going on in America. And this is my country. And my patriotism is one of my number 1 priorities. And I've never hid that fact from you guys. Ever. I mean, Mega's my mod here. Meg, have I ever hid the fact that I am a patriotic son of a bitch? Red, white, and blue. I have a Desert Storm ball cap. I did 6 years in the Navy. Proud to serve. Would I do it again? No. But whatever. But I was proud to serve. I really am. Okay? I mean, it takes a very special person to be willing to put your life on the line to serve your country. Because that's what you're doing when you're signing up. You're saying, hey, look, I could die for my country. You know that going in. You don't think about it that much, right? Because you're like, okay, the odds are small, but you know that's its potential. You think, but if that happens, it happens. What are you going to do? So, I'm going to give, by the way, I'll give you a wrench, Josh. So if there's any time I have to do a seconds, like a delay, it won't affect my moderator. So I'm giving you moderators so that won't affect you. So 1 sec. All right, so here's my people that I think that are running the country. Ready for this? 1, Anita Dunn. 2, Mike Dolian. I think they pronounce the name. Donilon, I think. Yeah. And last but not least, Steve McRae. Do you guys know who those 3 people are? Because if you don't, you got to go look. If you've never heard of Steve McRae, Mike Dolian, and Anita Dunn, then you may not know who the hell was running the country when Joe Biden was not cognitively aware that he was even the president of the United States. He thought he was the president of NATO at one time. The stories that people have said about him not even know what he was signing, not even aware of being in the moment, it's telling. So it raises the question, who was making the big decisions? And why would they give preemptive pardons to people like Adam Schiff, who effectively tried to frame Trump for the Russian collusion hoax? Because that's what it was. No doubt in my mind about it. Crossfire Hurricane made that very clear, that this was the Department of Justice under Biden that knew for a fact that the Hunter Biden laptop was real, that would have affected the election. Fact. They knew that social media was talking about this kind of stuff and trying to say that it was a hoax. Fact. They put a gag order on their people saying, we don't want to talk about this. Let them think what they want. Fact. They did help spread misinformation that Trump was having this collusion with Russia in order to affect the election. Fact. So those are the people. And by the way, does anybody know who they are? Because these three people were his senior advisors. Okay, these three people were his cabal. But anyways, to get back on the whole Maga thing, there's just many things that I looked into, and I said, look, what is it that I represent for my country? What is it that I stand for? And what I stand for is a safer America. I live in California, right? People know I live, right next to the fairgrounds over here, which is it's not a gang hotspot by any means, but they do come in. There's gangs to the north of us. There's gangs a little bit to the south, but they usually stay in their own area, and they're not like the worst of the worst. They're like the little local gangs, right? So they do their thing, right? Most of them will never bother you because they're the kind of gangs that don't want any kind of heat, right? So it's not like that. We all know that there's gangs that are in Coachella Valley. Come on, the worst ones, they stay much more isolated. But I can see that the homelessness here and the drug use here has gone off the charts. We had a CVS right across from us that went out of business. Why? Because of theft. Because it was constantly people were stealing stuff. The homeless were living outside of it. It was run down. Why? Because our governor, Newsom, doesn't know how to run a state, and he wants to become president? Oh, no. These are sanctuary cities. Coachella Valley is a sanctuary city. Boston's a sanctuary city. All these sanctuary cities are basically harboring criminals, just like the two judges. Oh, that's another thing I'll talk about real quick. Two judges that got arrested. The media is saying, oh, look at Trump. He's arresting judges. It's the end of democracy. Oh, no, we have escalated. That's the word they're using. The Trump administration has escalated. BS. Straight up BS. They have a script. There's all of them are saying the Trump administration has escalated by arresting judges. That's not what happened. Two things happened. One, you had a judge who literally was having TDA gang members living with him, going to firing ranges with them. One of them had pictures of decapitated people on his phone. This was a sitting judge in New Mexico. You think that's a problem? Because I do. That's a big problem. And what's even funnier is when I first saw the headline, and I'll paraphrase, but it was something along the lines of New Mexico judge steps down after terrorist TDA gang member found in his home. And I thought, okay, this judge came home, he found a terrorist in his house, and he said, nope, I'm done. I'm out of here. Okay, I get it. He was in fear for his life. Makes sense. I totally understand that. Can't even fault the guy. You come home and you see a gang member, you're probably going to have a problem with that. But that's not what it was. What it was he resigned because they found a terrorist and his friends were living with him. So that's a problem. The other judge that they have arrested, she was in court with this illegal alien who was on trial for strangulation of a domestic partner relationship and one other victim with the prosecuting attorney. She finds out that ICE happens to be waiting for this guy. And there's a reason why ICE waits in courthouses. One, you know the time and date the person is going to be there, which is good. And two, they've already had preliminary scanning. They've already gone through the primary scanners, so you know they don't have a weapon, which is much more safer for the ICE agents, for the detainee, and for the people around them. So there's reasons why they do it in a courthouse, which is perfectly legal for them to do. Highly recommended. The judge finds out and she loses her mind. She says, no, I'm not going to help ICE arrest this poor, I think, where was he from? Where was he from? I don't remember where he's from. But basically, she says, I'm not going to help ICE arrest this illegal alien who's on trial for strangulation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell him and his lawyer to come follow me as I lead them out the back way through her private chambers and jury room so he can escape from the ICE. Which, fun fact, he didn't. Fun fact, she was arrested. So she violated title, I don't remember the exact thing, but she basically, obstruction of justice. Blatant obstruction of justice. Right? She not only obstructed justice, you guys, people out there about due process. What about the due process for this guy's victims? They're sitting there going, hey, we want justice. This guy tried to strangle me. And in fact, they didn't even have their names in the court filings because they were so scared of this guy. They didn't want anything to do with this guy. They didn't want their names even in the court record. What about their justice? Where was their due process? So those are the two judges that got arrested. Totally above board. Even CNN was going, yeah, these judges, they should have been arrested, but you know what? They should have given them the courtesy of allowing them to turn themselves in or done it privately. But Scott's, what's the guy from the CNN? Scott Jennings. Love him. He's like, no, let's make it into a spectacle. You are violating American law and thinking that you're above immigration law to harbor these people. You're going to be made a spectacle of. I agree with that. And I think they should all have the fullest amount of penalties because they are making it unsafe for Americans. Simple as that. So what is it the Democrats are writing on? What is their platform? Because I don't see any platform other than Trump, orange, man, bad, illegal aliens, good. That's it. That's all I see from them. They have no plan to fix the border, which is already fixed by Trump. They have no plans to do anything with the economy, which I'm all for these tariffs, where they're putting in, they're going to be a lot of revenue coming up from those. I'm all for domestic products. I'm all for revamping the auto industry. I'm all for eliminating the income tax below $200,000, which probably will happen, which means that you make under $200,000, you won't have to worry about filing taxes any longer, which is something libertarians have been saying for how many years? Abolish the IRS, get rid of all the tax codes and things of that nature, streamline it. That's what they want to do. And then you have also Doge finding $160 billion worth of waste, and then people are like, well, they said $2 trillion. They're not done yet. But even still, 160 so far in 3 months, that's pretty impressive. So, anyways, this is just the main crux of it. I don't want to go on too long tonight. I'm probably going to just go 90 minutes, so I've got about 22 minutes left. I will answer as many questions as I can. Be respectful. I will tell you that I've blocked a lot of people on Facebook, not because of differing opinions, but the way they come at me sideways. And if you're going to put out misinformation and tell me, and gaslight me vehemently like I'm Hitler or something like that, I'm not going to tolerate it. Because once you say something like Hitler, you have nowhere else to go. And this whole BS about Trump being like a dictator or Hitler, I don't want to hear it. I don't care. You're free to believe it. But as soon as you run that type of narrative, you're just going to be gone. I'm not interested. I'm just not. It just does nothing for me besides tell me you have nothing about the subject that you're able to opine upon. If you cannot give me a rational, logical, argument that is based upon facts and reason, then I don't give a damn what you think about a person individually. Because whatever Trump as a man has done, that's what he's going to have to deal with. But as a president in the second term, he is doing exactly what I want him to do. And the only other option was Kamala, and she would have been an absolute train wreck. AOC would be an absolute train wreck. I want a person who can lead the country. And that's what Trump has been doing. He has done things that other presidents had already said they were going to do, but didn't do. Obama and Biden both said they were going to eliminate waste. They didn't do it. They didn't set up Doge. And then you have people running around going, oh, I'm going to put a swastika on a Cybertruck to show Elon Musk. You know, it's like, what? What's going through these people's brains where they think that's a good idea? If you're a Jewish American, you walk outside and you have a Cybertruck and you see a swastika on it, first of all, you may not know what the hell they're protesting. You just might think, you know, some anti-Semitic person who's trying to kill me or something. I'm Jewish by culture, right? My mom's Jewish, right? Since she was Jewish, the kids are Jewish. But who thinks it's a good idea to destroy other people's property because you politically disagree with them? Because there's no justification for that. None. It's insanity that people are defending this crap. It's insanity that people are saying, oh, well, Trump and Elon, bad man, go out and firebomb some Tesla dealerships. That makes no sense. Those people should be arrested for domestic terrorism. Absolutely be arrested for domestic. They're terrorists. What else do you call them? So if you want to ask me a question, do so by @me, NonSequitur Show. So Joe King asked, do you think NPR should be done away with? Yes, absolutely. NPR and what's the other one? NPR and PBS. NPR has 78 people on their board. Out of those 78 people, do you know how many of them are Republicans, MAGA, or GOP? Zero. They're all Democrats. Far left-leaning Democrats, too, mostly. So why should we fund another political propaganda news organization? We shouldn't. So absolutely, I believe in defunding it, all of it. Just like I believe in defunding the Department of Education. We don't need it. We have departments in the states for that. Josh, $10 says, let's lighten us up. What's your favorite Collins Era Genesis album? First of all, Genesis was only Genesis with Collins, God dang it. With Phil Collins, because I don't consider them Genesis without Phil Collins. I'm sorry. And by the way, he started as their, I know Josh knows this, but people don't know, he started as their drummer and he ended up being their singer. That's talent. That's some serious talent. As far as my favorite album by them, I don't know. If I had to I obviously everybody knows In the Air Tonight, Invisible Touch. I really don't know. I probably maybe Genesis. The name, what is it called? The name of the album was Genesis, but the band's name is Genesis, so they call it the titular name, right? The titular name. So Genesis was a good album, but that was like 1983. Invisible Touch was in 86 because I was in high school, junior year. So those were probably my favorite albums because those were the albums that came out in high school. I do like Peter Gabriel. Peter Gabriel's talented, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it should have still been Genesis. Peter Gabriel, when he came on, it became Peter Gabriel, because Peter Gabriel's, he's genius. He really is. So to answer your question, Josh, I got to go with either Genesis or Invisible Touch. It's not the same time period where Boston came out, and Foreigner. Was it Agent Provocateur? I think, or was that the 70s? But anyways, I hope that answers your question. But yes, going back to joking, I do think NPR should be defunded. Yes. Somebody says, Steve, can you talk about the materials available in the country? We can't even manufacture a toaster with the resources we have. We have one thing in mind. Well, we do have a lot of reserved rare minerals, but they won't last forever. I think I looked into it. We had about $2 billion worth of rare earth reserves. And we do need to find more. And unfortunately, the biggest provider for rare earth right now, if I'm not mistaken, is China. I do think that we need to get a lot, more people on board, economically speaking, for the countries, which I think we have probably enough now, where China has to either say, look, we're either going to work with you guys or we're going to make our own market. And it will be split. There'll be people that want to do business with us. There'll be people that want to do business with China. And we probably wouldn't allow people to do both. You pick one of us, and China will be isolated. If that's what they want to do, go for it. We cannot rely on other countries. We have to figure out a way to be self-reliant, or at least be able to trade with other countries where we have a fair trade relationship and not be taken advantage any longer. So I am fine with that. So I do think we need to find more resources, but I do think we have mines that we could tap here. So what else we got? Am I okay with young people working on Doge? Yes, absolutely. I prefer it. Absolutely. Look, I was 21 years old when I first got to my ship. When I was 23, I was fully qualified to operate a 150 megawatt reactor and train people to operate a 150 megawatt nuclear reactor. So yes, I do think that people in their early age are a lot better at absorbing a large amount of information, because I can memorize a crap ton in my teens. I'm talking full-on memorization of textbooks verbatim. I would have to memorize things. I still remember things verbatim. For example, I still remember this, like the pressure exerted on an enclosed fluid at rest will be transmitted equally and undiminished throughout the fluid and to the walls of the container. I had that memorized in nuke school. Never forgot it, because we had to do a lot of rote memorization, right? I also remember pi, 3.14159265358979232. I just was able to memorize a lot of stuff. Am I able to do that now? No. Not by any stretch of imagination. My cognitive functions are nowhere near what they were when my 20s. But I can tell you right now, whenever there was an emergency, we got the job done. When there was a reactor scram, we shut down the reactor properly. When we needed to start up the reactor, we understood the physics well enough to know how to start up that reactor safely. We knew if we could do the calculations. We understood the physics well enough to know how long do we have to wait to start up the reactor. Because when the reactor would scram, it would produce a large amount of these called noble gases like xenon. That would be a neutron absorber. So if you have a large peak in xenon, promethium, samarium, and other neutron absorbers, you have to raise rod height a lot higher during a startup to get the initial point of adding heat to your moderator to get your reactor power up. And you don't want to raise your rods any higher than you want to, because you're exposing more fuel, which lowers the overall life expectancy of the core. And there's other physics involved too, but we understood the physics involved. So we were able to say, hey, look, I'll give you an example real quick. I know it's going to be boring, but whatever, it's my show. An officer one time told me, hey, Petty Officer McRae, can you put number one engine room in this lineup? In other words, close this valve, open this valve, do this, and this. We're running off steam from one reactor at this particular knots. And I told him, I said, actually, I can't. I said, the manual, the operating manual, standard, what's called the standard operating practices, SOP, says very clearly the only time, and we were doing some kind of, like ship. We were working with other ships, doing stuff like showing off. I don't remember the exact details, but we were with other ships and we were going really, really fast. And I got the order at full bell or whatever. We're at full throttle, or close to it, but we wanted to put the lineup in a number one engine room rather than number one, number two. And I said, the only time you can do that is very clear, when you have a battle short condition. And what battle short is a button in command and control, or IC control, where if you push that button, The control rods would not automatically drop if there's a reactor scram. Normally, you have these control rod drive mechanisms that are powered, that keep their control rod lifted. Basically, they're like a screw, and then you have these things that come down over the screw and fit into it, and they rotate, the screw goes up and down, raising and lowering the rod. And so when they lose power, these things are spring-loaded, they'll pop open and drop the rod straight down through gravity, or spring-loaded, depending on your core design. But I told the officer, who was a junior officer, I don't remember if he was one of the ones I trained or not, because I used to train the officers, but I said, I can't put it that lineup. We're not in a war. We can't put it in battle short. He relieved me of my duty. And I said, okay, that's fine. I got called in the chief engineer's room, called the Chain. Chain asked me a very straight question, very straightforward. He said, Pastor McRae, were you ordered to do this? Put in this lineup? I said, yes, sir. He said, did you? I said, no. And he said, why not? And I said, can I show you? And I showed him right there. The only time it can be in this lineup at that temperature, at this pressure that we're at, because there's something called brittle fracture. If you guys are familiar with that, you don't want your materials at a high temperature being rapidly cooled, and you don't want something that is cooled rapidly heated up. Things tend to shatter. They do bad things when this happens. And I showed him. I said, we were doing these operations, but we were not at a battle short condition. We were not in an emergency situation where we needed to keep the reactor going, and I wasn't going to put it in that lineup because it was unsafe to do so. You know what he said? I don't remember the exact words, but it was like, good call. That's it. I was like, I was like, that's it. That's as far as it went. Because I knew enough about the plant to know what the junior officer was asking was wrong. So these people that are working on Doge, absolutely, I'm fine with them being young. Matter of fact, they're better at it. Better at it than probably the older people. Because they know the technologies. They know the newer stuff. So, anyways, I'm absolutely fine with that. But, anyways, what are the questions you got? I don't see anything at me, so if you want to ask me a question, do at. I'm not going to be going much longer. I have literally 8 minutes, and then I'll be calling it a night. I've got to take my meds, which I take every night. I'm going to probably be trying to do this full-time because I can't work full-time. So if I'm going to do anything full-time, I'm going to do mostly my Twitter, which, by the way, I don't make a dime off of my Twitter. I didn't go Maga for that. If I wanted to make money off politics, I would have gone Democrat probably, but there's a lot more to talk about, right? I'm not going to be able to fit it all in 90 minutes, but what I wanted you guys to know that there's reasons why I am MAGA now. I didn't just pull this out of my ass, right? But if you want to think that, that's fine. I'm not going to argue with people on it. There's not going to be a topic where I debate it. There's not going to be a topic where I really discuss it with people. I'm going to be mostly giving my views on it, and if people want to listen, that's great. If they want to disagree, that's fine too. But I'm not going to debate because I've realized at certain times I just cannot get through to people. The major problems they're having is that it's always comes down to Trump's doing this rather than, but what is going on that's really wrong? What is wrong with arresting a judge that's living with gang members, right? And that's taking gang members to go out shooting. There's a problem with this. There's a problem with illegal immigration. There's a problem with immigrants getting Social Security numbers and getting on the rolls from Medicaid and getting on the rolls to cast your vote during elections because there was illegals that voted. And I don't know how deep the campaign fraud goes. I don't. But I do believe that Jasmine Crockett will probably be eventually arrested too. Why? Campaign fraud. The ACLU, there's major stuff I think is going to happen with that. And if people don't know what ACLU is, ACLU is what they're supposed to do is this. They're supposed to get grassroots donations and then take those little donations and then distribute them to people that are running for office. Nothing inherently wrong with that. But the problem is they weren't grassroots donations. They weren't these mom and pop spending $5 or $10, $100 donating to the political candidate of their choice. No, what it was people donating a large amount of money over 20 different times, over 20 different names, or even the same name 20 times. And ACLU lowered their fraud detection levels in order to accommodate that. So they lowered their accommodation to receive these illegal contributions, and everybody knew they were doing it, and they took the money anyways. Josh Gardner, Josh, $10. Stop it, Josh. Stop. You do enough. I appreciate it. If anybody else wants to super chat, by all means. But Josh, I appreciate it. I still love you too, man. And like I said, Josh is one of the very few people I can call in the middle of the night and I know will listen, and vice versa. So I'm just telling everybody out there right now, if Josh says so, it's gospel to me. As far as people I trust, we don't have to agree on everything, but he is one of the best people I've ever met in my life. I have 3 people that I know are just amazing human beings, and that's rare. That's rare. So, all right. Anyways, what other questions we got? And by the way, if you're not tagging at me, I'm not going to be able to see it because I did get a bigger monitor. I really did. But unfortunately, I still have a hard time reading the live chat. So nobody has any other questions? Because I'm going to be wrapping this up in 4 minutes. I just want to thank you guys for hearing me out. And again, follow along. Don't follow along. It is what it is. I hope you guys do. Because if you guys don't agree with me, I think you would still subscribe to find out when, I'm streaming on this stuff. So you can come over and say, hey, I don't agree, but here's why. Just be civil about it. I may get back to you. I may not. I don't know. Because I'm just tired of the acrimony, the uncivilness of people when it comes to politics. And I'm not saying that I'm above it. I'm not trying to be a hypocrite. But the difference is I don't talk to people like Josh uncivilized if he disagrees with me. I don't say, hey, Josh, you don't agree with me politically. You're Hitler. You're siding with a dictator. You are just like that. I can't bring myself to do that. Josh, $20. I don't want to say F you. I do what I want because I all my other stuff got demonetized. But thank you, Josh, for another $20. I appreciate it. And it's funny because, like I said, he's not even MAGA. I have not had one MAGA person donate a dime to me. So if you're MAGA, shoot me $2. At least know I'm supported by MAGA, because I'm not. Like I said, I know that MAGA agrees with me, but I don't have any MAGA people that are like actively supporting me. So don't think that I do. I still have some atheist stuff to do, and agnostic stuff to do too. By the way, I want to get back involved in that as well. Some really interesting stuff happening along those lines. Some really good review videos that I wanted to do because there's some really good discussions lately. I'm not turning Christian, by the way, not by any stretch of imagination. For the guys who don't know, I am officially, this is not my religion, okay, not my religion, but I am officially a member of the Satanic Temple, a card-carrying member that says Steve McRae, a holy pope of agnosticism. So I am definitely not Christian. I believe Christianity is wrong. I believe Islam is wrong. I believe that pretty much every religion is wrong. But I'm just not at the point where I think that I can safely say there's no intelligence behind reality, because I have no clue. I just have no clue. I've lit up many nights thinking about this stuff, and I've reached the point where I realize that at a certain point you have to realize it's just a mental exercise. You're not going to come to a conclusion. You have to accept it. We're all going to live. We're all going to pay taxes, and we're all going to die. And my health scare got me to the point to realize that my mortality is a reality, and I'm not scared by it. I don't believe there's a God that I have to believe in to realize that. If there's something afterwards, we'll deal with it then. But it's certainly not going to be that you don't believe in God, you send to this hell for eternity. That's not a loving God. It's got to be something other than that. Got to be, if it's intelligence. But, I still have, I still have my blood work, and I still have a lot of other stuff, but I'm definitely feeling much better. I really am. That is true. But it really did make you think, right? But people don't know, my brother was 50 when he passed. He died of the exact same thing that I had. We're pretty much similar. He died of colon cancer. And, I have to have colonoscopies every year. I highly recommend it. I'm just going to tell you guys, if you're over 50, go get a colonoscopy. Don't put it off. Don't put it off. Because I would absolutely have probably had cancer at the rate I was going. And so highly recommend it. Seriously, just go get it done. And it's so easy too. There's nothing to it. I was all like, oh, this is gonna be horrifying. Honestly, I didn't even notice anything. It just felt like maybe, like somebody was wiping my ass. I don't know. It was nothing. It was absolutely freaking nothing. I was awake the whole time, but there was like an hour, and it was like literally like 1 minute to me because I was sedated. So don't be scared. It's not painful. Go get it done. Keep yourself healthy. I broke down and got some pizza tonight. I'm sorry because I just wanted to do this tonight and have some damn comfort food. But I eat every morning. I eat a salad. I have tea and coffee. I basically will eat bananas. I've been trying to eat a lot healthier. And so it's made a big difference in diet. My cholesterol has gone way down because I'm on medication for that. My blood pressure has gone up for arteriosclerosis, but I've been managing that. But as far as like all the other stuff, yeah, diet has made a big difference. So, but anyways, guys, thanks for sticking in there. And thank you, Zebulon and Taboo Topics and everybody else, because again, if you don't agree with me, that's not an excuse to be a shitty person, right? You can disagree with people on politics and not be a shitty person to them. Like, Chris and I disagree. I don't have to be a shitty person to them. So by all means, you don't have to agree with me. You can hate MAGA and hate Trump as much as you want. I don't care. It doesn't, whatever. I'm not supporting Trump. I'm not even supporting MAGA, really. What I'm doing is supporting America. And MAGA and Trump right now is best for America, by far. There's no doubt in my mind about it. Because I do believe, 100%, without question, without reservation, that the Democratic Party has had years of corruption, years of fleecing America, stealing trillions of dollars through NGOs, untraceable money, fraud, and they're deliberately lying to you. The people like Adam Schiff and other people, they know they're guilty as hell. It's not a matter of just Trump. See, like I said, there's the people with Trump deranged syndrome that I literally believe he's dangerous and he's a dictator. I can at least understand that to some degree. Because if you really felt that the president, who has done nothing of the sort, I don't see him putting people in gas chambers. I mean, the hyperbole is remarkable. But even if you did believe that wholeheartedly, I can understand why you would push against that. I do. But the people that know that's the false statement, the people that know that's not true, they're the ones that have been fleecing America. They're the ones that are corrupt, and they hopefully will be eventually arrested, because I do think justice is coming. I think they're making indictments. I think they're going to be arresting people in the FBI, in the Department of Justice, hopefully some congressmen and senators as well. Because what I think they're doing is saying, hey, look, he's going to start arresting judges, and then he's going to arrest people in the FBI, and he's going to arrest congressmen. Oh, he's Hitler. When all along, these people are corrupt. They deserve to be arrested because they are treasonous. And I mean treason in the literal sense of the word. Legally, can you count it as treason? It depends. Sedition and treason, very, very specific things. But they definitely violated the law. And they're definitely funneling hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars. And there's just no way that I'm ever going to be able to not see that. No way. So, anyways, guys, that's my little rant to you guys. I appreciate you guys listening. It has now been 93 minutes, and I will be logging off. Thank you guys very much. Please leave me a comment. But like I said, if you guys disagree with me, I probably may or may not respond, but feel free to do so. But if you come at me sideways, all that's going to happen is that you're going to get deleted. You come at me sideways twice, you're just going to get blocked, because I don't care. I'm not here to try to get a bunch of subs. I'm going to tell you what I honestly believe and my positions. And those who want to listen will have the opportunity to do so, because I still have a voice and I still have a channel. And as long as I do, I will fight for my country, because I'm a fucking American. Good night.